Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the As the Leader Grows podcast. I'm your host, Ken Joslin. Man, we have got an extra special guest for you today. I was in Vegas, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 months ago with my good friend Brad Lee. I was doing Brad's closer school, hanging out, chilling with Brad and Jonathan and the team and doing closer school one afternoon. And I ran into this guy named Sean Michael Crane, who is my next guest, who's actually on Brad's Dropping Bombs podcast. When I met this dude, I'm like, dude, we got to know each other. I got to get you on my podcast. Guys, I'm telling you, we've had some phenomenal fit people. My guy, Russ Yeager. We've got some phenomenal trainers. This dude right here, ladies and gentlemen, his abs have abs. Like if he pulled his shirt, and when he comes and does create next year, dude, I'm gonna have you take your shirt off like I did Russ last year. I'm like, bro, just take your shirt off and let me see your abs real quick. But guys, Sean Michael Crane, he's a life coach, best-selling author, motivational speaker. His story is absolutely unbelievable, the things that he's overcome. Sean, what's up, my friend?
What's going on, my man? I appreciate you having me here, and for the awesome intro. I appreciate that.
Dude, excited. Tell everybody in our audience today a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you've got going on right now.
Yeah, so I'm from Santa Barbara, California, beautiful beach community about 2 hours north of Los Angeles. I'm a family man. I have 3 children, happily married, living the dream, man, raising the kids, being the leader they deserve, and looking to make a massive impact on this world. I have a coaching program. I work with men on their confidence, mental toughness, resilience, just becoming that caliber of individual they aspire to be. I'm also looking to start speaking more. Obviously, I'll be seeing you in January, and I'm fired up about that. I want to get on stage and share my message. I've been through some really trying, difficult times in my life, especially the first 2 decades. Yeah. But it taught me so much. I feel like I've gained some wisdom and insight that I wouldn't have ever been able to have. So I want to share that with the world, man.
You said just a minute ago, you said living the dream. And the first thing I thought of when you said that was, bro, you hadn't always been living the dream. Take us back. I don't know. How old are you now? 30 what?
I'll be 34 on Sunday.
You're a kid. Take us back 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Walk us through where it wasn't a dream and literally the life you're living right now, you really had no idea you could even achieve. Talk to us about that journey.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly just got chills when you just brought that up because I really feel like I'm just living the dream. Like everything I have today, I'm so appreciative for. I'm so grateful every day I open my eyes because it wasn't always this way. I grew up in a small beach community and things seemed great as a child. I had big dreams. I wanted to be a professional athlete. But around the age of 10, I found out my parents were battling addiction. And slowly but surely, my household became unraveled. My mother left us due to her drug habit. My dad went to prison. And that experience just devastated me. In my first week or my first month as a freshman in high school, I lost both my parents. And I didn't know how to deal with the emotional impact of that event. I was distraught. I was heartbroken.
Freshman in high school? Is that what you said? A freshman
in high school. Yeah, freshman in high school. So from the age of 10 to 14, there was a lot of chaos at home. The cops would come. I saw my mother overdose several times. There was a lot of traumatic things I witnessed. And then at 14, that's when we just imploded, and I lost both my parents. And so from 14 all through high school, all the way to my early 20s, I was lost. I didn't know who I was or what I wanted out of life. I had no direction. I stopped going to school. I stopped playing sports. I stopped hanging out with my old friends. And I started using drugs and alcohol to numb out my pain. And I found out that when I drank or when I smoked for that little moment of time, I didn't have to experience reality. I could escape and I could numb myself.
Tell me, I mean, a freshman in high school, man, those are supposed to be the years, they're still very formative years in our teenage years. It's supposed to be the years where we're enjoying having fun. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you. I'm a lot older than you. Back in the days where there were no cell phones, it was bikes and you came home when it got dark outside and mom would holler your first name, then your first and last name, then all 3 names. And then that's when you knew your ass had to be back in the house. Walk me through how a young Sean processed through some of that pain, not having any parents at home and really not having any structure. And you're in a very formative part of your life.
Yeah, man. I mean, I saw all the other kids around me getting to enjoy their life. They had both parents. They were happy. They would be laughing at school and socializing, and you could tell they were confident And I didn't have that. I became very insecure and withdrawn. I stopped going to school because I felt so uncomfortable and ashamed of myself and my life. And I really felt like a victim, man. I was thinking to myself, why is this happening? How could this be happening? And I was miserable. And the only thing I could do was try to run from my problems. I wasn't strong enough or ready to face what had happened to me. And there was nights, man, I'd get up and I'm still young, 14, 15, but I'd go in the bathroom and tears would just start pouring down my face. And I would just be so angry and upset staring at myself in the mirror, basically calling up to God or the universe or whoever, like, help me. Why is this happening to me? Thankfully, I had my uncle Mike who lived with us. He's like my guardian angel, man. He's been there from day one. When my parents were battling addiction before I even knew what was going on when I was a youngster, he was always there coming to check up on me. And eventually he moved in with us. So when I lost my parents, he was there to step into the role of dad, of leader, of even mother. Like he took us kids on as his own. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be speaking to you today. I wouldn't be here. I'd be dead or still in prison. I just know that. I had somebody that represented hope, somebody that showed me love unconditionally. And that got me through that dark time. As heartbroken as I was to lose my parents, I still had somebody there that was my blood, that was my family, that I could lean on. And even when I was making bad choices, even when I was, not going to school or doing things that were dumb, he was always the voice of reason, reminding me of who I was, reminding me of that kid in my heart that I still had. I was still connected to that person despite being lost. So, that was a blessing, man. That was a blessing.
So walk me through. So parents are gone most of your high school years. You literally leaned into drugs and alcohol to numb the pain from them not being there. Walk us through that journey leading you to where you had to serve a prison sentence.
Yeah. So at first, the drugs and alcohol became a crutch, a way to escape or numb myself. But over time, I became addicted to these drugs and alcohol. And I really lost myself. My identity became warped. My behavior changed over time. And for a brief period, I thought that that's who I was. Maybe this was the life I was destined to live. I was kind of just accepting it, not willing to change or try to fight back. But deep down in my heart, I always knew that wasn't who I was. I always knew that I didn't want to live that way. I just didn't know how I could change. I didn't know what to do. And so fast forward from 14 till about 18, getting out of high school, having no goals, no directions, no ambition. Luckily, one of my other uncles had a business. He ran a tree service company. So he gave me work. And it was hard physical work, manual labor every day, climbing trees, dragging brush. But I was making money and I started to feel good about myself for the first time in years because I was doing something that made me feel accomplished, but at the same time, I still had my habit, my addiction. I still had this group of friends that I would associate with that weren't going anywhere in life, that were just kind of staying stuck. And that's what I was doing from 18 until 23. I was living, kind of a wild lifestyle. I'd work hard all day. I'd party all night. And I thought that that's what we did at 21, 22, 23. And a lot of kids do that in college. But the way we were living was much more sinister. You had people using hard drugs, people dying in car accidents. I lost a lot of people. I lost a lot of family members, a lot of friends to drug habits, to accidents, to violence. And it was a tumultuous time in my life.
So was there ever any moment in there, Sean, where you thought, man, dude, I've got to stop doing this? Like, was there a specific death or a loss of a loved one or a friend where you thought, man, this is not going to end well for me?
Yeah. I had family members die at my house. I saw my dad overdose when I was 19. He almost died. I had to give him CPR until the ambulance got there, to keep oxygen flowing through his lungs and in his bloodstream. Death and that lifestyle, it was very apparent, but I felt so stuck in it. I never thought that I could change. What was I going to do? Just leave my family, move away? I didn't know what to do. I felt stuck. And I know a lot of people feel like that, maybe in not as extreme of an environment as I was in. But when we get into a certain part in our life, we feel stuck. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to change? We feel hopeless. And so that's what I felt like. I felt stuck, and I didn't think there was anything I could do to change. So ironically, going to prison gave me an opportunity to change. Going to prison gave me a pause on life. It gave me an environment that was away from my old friends, my family members. My dad, who, after he came back in the picture after prison, he and I became very codependent. He was working with my uncle and we were together every day. We were using drugs and drinking together. Now we're like friends and buddies. And it was just a really distorted life that I was living. So ironically, man, prison saved my life and gave me the opportunity to change that I don't think I ever would have had or taken, because I just felt so stuck.
So walk us through, how old were you when you went to prison?
I was 23.
Walk us through, like, you're in court, you're walking through all of that stuff, and they go, dude, your sentence is, and what was your original sentence to go to prison? How many years?
Well, originally they're charging me with life in prison.
Right.
My whole
right.
life. And so I ended up getting an offer for 7 years that I took as a plea deal and admitted guilt to something I didn't even do. So going to prison, going to jail initially, it's not just like quick. It's a drawn out process. Mm-hmm. It's grueling. It's grueling, man. You have to endure, countless days in there. I was in county jail for 8 months before I found out how much time I was going to do. So in that 8 months, the first month was completely surreal. I couldn't believe that I was being charged for a crime that I didn't commit and that I was facing life in prison. I mean, this is something you see in a movie. You hear about happening to people, but nobody ever thinks it could actually happen to them. And for the first month, I just kept asking myself, how is this happening? This can't be real. Surely someone's going to come forward and give some new information, and I'm going to be, exonerated for this crime, and they're going to let me go. And that's what I thought. But the first day I went to court, I was shackled up walking into the courtroom. Everyone else is wearing normal clothes, suits. They get to go home later, right? Not me. I'm walking in shackled up at my wrists and ankles. And members of the news press are there taking pictures. They put my picture on the front page of the news press. Sean Michael Crane charged with attempted murder in my hometown. So everyone saw that. Everyone saw me on the news. It was a really a horrific crime. Somebody was stabbed at a party and I got blamed for it. So going to court that day, I realized what was at stake for me, but I couldn't even connect to what was taking place. It felt too surreal. I literally felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. And I'll never forget my lawyer rushing over to me that day. And for the first time, I got hopeful for a second to see somebody who was there to represent me, who could help me. But my lawyer said one thing to me, and that was it. They said, look, the judge and the DA want to amend your charges to homicide today. The victim's in a coma. They don't think he's going to survive, so they're going to change your charges. Now I'm looking at murder.
Wow.
Murder. But they never did amend my charges. This individual made a miraculous comeback. He survived by the grace of God. They said that he died 3 times in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. So this was a miracle that he survived. And I didn't know all of that information at the time. I was obviously just worried about myself, not even thinking about this person who almost lost their life or his family members. But then, for the next several months, being stuck in a cell for 23 hours a day, thinking your life's over.
Wow. How did day after day after day, the monotony of that, how did you maintain some sense of normalcy through that, dude?
I realized I had to. I mean, when your back's put up against the wall and you have no choice but to fight to survive, you find ways or strength or attributes within you that you never know you possess. For me, being stuck in that cell was like torture. Every day waking up thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to live in prison for the rest of my life. I'm never going to have a family. I'm never going to get out. I'm never going to go and hug my loved ones or swim in the ocean or do all these things I wanted to do. And it was torture. But, I had to experience that pain and understand the consequences of my choices. I truly felt guilty for being in that cell, not for the crime. I knew I was innocent, but I felt guilty for the way I'd lived my life. Suddenly, I started to look back on all those wasted years, all of the experiences I didn't have because I made excuses. I worried about what people would think. I was scared of failure. I was scared to put myself out there. The regret that I experienced in that cell was absolutely devastating, and it was worse than the potential life sentence I was facing.
So how did you talk to me about how you're there for 8 months, every single day, 23 hours in a cell, and then you get sentenced. How did you process through that? And even what inside you, do you have Do you have some memory of some moments where you were like, nope, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. This is what my future looks like. This jail cell doesn't dictate or determine my future. I know who I am. Walk us through that mindset and that creation of the strength that you needed to be able to persevere through being charged of a crime you didn't even commit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being stuck in a cell all day like that, you have nothing but time to think and reflect. And for the first time in my life, I started to reflect on who I was and my life and what I wanted. I started to ask myself questions I never had before, and what happened was I started to be honest with myself.
Wow.
For 10 years, I was in denial and unwilling to accept what had happened at home. I had been unwilling to accept who I'd become through that process. And I just kept running from it, thinking it would go away, but it never went away. It plagued me over and over and over. And so the moment I was honest with myself in that cell and I accepted the past and I allowed myself to feel the emotions and replay these memories, suddenly I got to a point where those incidents no longer bound me. The emotion, the shame, the guilt that I felt from my life, I was able to just express it. And I had this cathartic moment where I was in my cell writing. I was writing letters back home, talking about these things, writing my parents letters of forgiveness to let go of the past and close the door on that chapter. And I'm telling you, man, I felt this huge weight lifted off my shoulders.
Wow.
I knew what was at stake going forward, but I felt for the first time in my life, almost like a sense of freedom. I felt liberated because for so long,
you felt more free in a cell than you did
ever
outside of a cell when you were incarcerated.
Oh, by far. In that moment, I realized that I had been a prisoner most of my life.
Wow.
A prisoner here and here, right? So when I experienced that, then I almost felt like, okay, now, I can do something about this situation. I felt like, okay, now I wasn't compromised. I wasn't held back. And so a couple powerful things happened. In that moment, I had a day where I called my lawyer. This is a couple months later. And I'm calling them to see, hey, what has the private investigator uncovered? Have they talked to any new witnesses? Like, I wanted them to be out there working on my behalf and proclaim my innocence, And he goes, look, Sean, I'm just going to cut to this chase with you, man. I'm going to cut to the point. You're going to prison. There's no doubt about that. The evidence is horrible. The DA and the judge, everyone thinks you're guilty. You're going to prison. At this point, it's just a matter of how long you're going to be in prison for. And he didn't believe me that I was innocent. Nobody that was representing me did. I could tell every time I talked to them because the way the cops wrote up the police report looked horrible. If I would have read it, I would have said, yeah, he's guilty. Look at the evidence. And I knew that. I knew what I was up against. So I hung up the phone. And in that moment, I realized no one was coming to save me. No one was going to come and open that door and say, okay, Mr. Crane, like, slap on the wrist for making a foolish attempt to get into a wrestling match at that party. Like, we know you didn't do it, but you get to go home. That's not the way it works, And I realized in that moment that I was in a fight for my life and I had to fight. I had to be the one to make a change. I wasn't reliant on anyone else. And so I made two promises to myself in that moment that I've kept ever since. The first was that every moment from that point forward, no matter if I was in prison, no matter where I went, I was going to be my best self, my true self. The kid at heart that I had just neglected all those years, that I had lost. I was going to be that person no matter what. It was a promise to myself at the deepest level. And no one could take that from me. I knew that. And the second promise was that I was going to be sober for the rest of my life, that I was never going to drink, smoke, use anything ever again, because that had been a crutch and that had ruined my life, just like so many others. And so that was almost 10 years ago. I've been clean and sober ever since that moment, that promise. I'd never touch drugs or alcohol ever again. And that was the beginning of me fighting to persevere through this experience. So this all happened before I was sentenced, before I went to prison. And this was the mindset that I started to adopt in that cell.
So how long before? So you're in county lockup. You go before the judge. They sentence you. You're thinking life. They sentence you to 7 years. Walk me through that process in your mind. Were you just, I've made these two promises to myself. I'm going to be okay. There had to be some times where that was almost defeating to you. Yeah.
People ask me that a lot. I didn't have to take the plea deal. My lawyers told me I should, because if I went to trial and fought the case, chances are I was going to end up doing decades in prison, because no one wins in trial. It's unheard of, really. So I had accepted it to that point. And I was almost in a weird sort of way looking forward to going into that battle. You know, I looked at that as I truly felt, man, that God was saying, hey, if you do the right thing and you get through this experience, like this is going to change your entire life. I just felt that. I just felt something powerful was taking place within my life. So of course I didn't want to go to prison. You know, you hear stories about being in prison, you're going to miss your family, but I didn't think about that. You know, being in that cell for 23 hours a day, I started training my mind to only focus on solutions to my problem or possible positive outcomes. I wasn't dwelling on the what ifs. I wasn't thinking, what if I go to prison and get hurt? What if I, you know, don't see my loved ones? I blocked that out. I trained my mind.
Where did that come from, Sean? Is that something you read in a book? Is that something, you
No.
heard somebody say? Is that something you came up with on your own?
You know, it's funny. When I came home and during prison, I read a lot of self-help books, and all the strategies I've read about, I adopted in that cell through intuition, through survival. I started learning these things based on survival. So I would wake up every day, and the first thought I had was, I'm never getting out of this cell. I'm never going to go home. I'm doing life in prison. And when that happened, I was just overcome with anxiety, fear, stress, and I felt like I was dying in that cell. So I knew that I had to get control over my thoughts because my thoughts were affecting how I was feeling. And when I felt that way, all I wanted to do was curl up on my rack and just like pull the sheets over and try to hide from the world. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was a mess. So I started waking up every day and I would picture loved ones' faces. I would thank God for another day of life. I have air in my lungs. I have legs that work. You know, I have eyes. I could see colors, man. I can read these books. I can understand these words. And whatever I was doing all throughout the day, I just started talking to myself about how grateful I was to have that opportunity. And then I would start working out and I would say, I get to work out. I have arms and legs. You know, I get to read these books and gain this knowledge, or I get to write these letters home. People love me. They want to hear from me. And it was just this process every day of training my mind to create a gratitude perspective. And then also, you know, that led me to feeling more motivated to taking action to do something. And, you know, I know one of your themes, one of the things you talk about often is confidence. Before going to jail, I didn't have confidence. I lost that a long time ago, right? I was self-conscious. I had low self-esteem. So in that cell, creating this gratitude perspective, naturally I'd look around and then I'd say, well, okay, what can I do to better myself today? You know, I'm feeling a little more hopeful in the moment. What can I at least do today to better myself? It was the questions I started asking, right? And so all I could really do was keep my cell clean, read any books I had my hands on, and work out. And I started doing these things every single day without failure. I'd get up, I'd clean my cell, I'd work out, I'd read, and I'd write letters back home. And what I realized by going through that process was two things. It's not always about what you're doing, but how you're doing it that has the greatest impact on your confidence and self-esteem. And a lot of people lack self-esteem. You know, like 85% of people are reported to have low self-esteem. And it's simply because they're not doing things consistently enough that help them to feel good about who they are.
When you mentioned just a minute ago about the thought process, I had Allison Lager on. She's a big time therapist out of New York City. She's got like 3 or 4 locations, a couple dozen therapists that work for her. One of the things she said the other day in our podcast interview, it just dropped today, was we have over 90,000 thoughts a day. And every day, 91% of the thoughts are from the previous day. It's our brain's way of conserving energy. So you've got to be, and you just said it, like literally what you just said proves exactly what she talked about. You have got to change your mindset through gratitude, through affirmations, through putting the work in like you did. And what happens is it slowly shifts those 90,000 thoughts. So the next day, as it reproduces, the same 91% of the thoughts are the exact same thoughts we had the day before. You're reprogramming your mind to think new thoughts. And as you do that every day, you're gaining more momentum, more momentum, more momentum, more momentum. Talk about 7-year prison term. How long did you serve?
Yeah, so I ended up doing 5.5 years. Out of the 7 years, I was going to do 6. You have to do 85% of your sentence when you have a violent crime in California. They gave me 6 months off my sentence because I ended up getting college degrees while I was in prison. So I found out they had a correspondence program, and I thought that was amazing. You know, I just wanted to do anything to better myself while I was incarcerated. And I ended up studying psychology, sociology, business, all these different subjects. I got 4 associate's degrees. So they gave me time off my sentence. And that gave me purpose, man. Every day I'd wake up and I'd have a paper to write, a book to read. I just immersed myself in personal development. And I started developing these daily routines where I'd, move my body. I'd always start my day off the same way. I had a morning routine. I adopted that because I was in a very negative environment. And if I just got up and just started being around these people or in this situation, it's a very adverse place to be. And there's so much negative energy. And, I didn't want to feel like I was putting my freedom in jeopardy. If I wasn't at my best mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, I could get myself into some type of argument, some type of wreck. So I started getting up early and I would just pray and reflect and tap into that gratitude. Every day, the self-talk from the moment I opened my eyes was, thank you, God, for another day of life. Thinking about my family members' faces, envisioning a future of achievements, of things I wanted to do. And then I would always write and I would read and exercise. And that was my morning routine. And then throughout the day, I'd go to whatever classes or programs they sent me to. I would take my college courses. And that was my daily process for over 2,000 days. And I built so much confidence and momentum and such a concrete identity through those daily routines, because now I was actively becoming the person I wanted to become. Every day in prison, I went to sleep proud of who I was because I was doing everything in my ability to better myself and move forward towards the life I wanted.
One of my favorite movies is Shawshank Redemption. It's like in my top 3 movies of all time. And I love when he goes, he looks at the board. Morgan Freeman's looking at the parole board, and he goes, so just stamp your damn paper, Sonny, and let me get on with my life. And then they do the parole. He gets parole, and he's free. Talk to me about the day when you found out, man, I'm going to be free. Like I'm out of here. How did that feel to you, knowing that all the work that you put in to build you? Why? I love what you said just a minute ago. I found freedom while I was incarcerated, and I was literally incarcerated while I was free. How did you feel the day you found out I'm getting out of prison?
Well, you think about it every single day. And it's just, it's like as a kid, Christmas morning, you wait for it all year long, right? It's like that magnified times a million. Like you wait for that day. There's anticipation. It's just like the best day of your life. That's all you want, is to get back home and have another chance and be with your family and be back out doing the things that you once took for granted, right? So the day you do get out, though, it's much different. There's a lot of anxiety. It's tough making that transition. It's very exciting. You're overwhelmed with all these emotions, but there's also a lot of anxiety because you're going from this environment you've just lived in for X number of years. It's predictable. You've had your routine. Now you're thrown back out to this fast-paced world. Cars are going fast. People have all these phones and social media, all this stuff that I didn't have when I got incarcerated. So it was exciting. It was something that I look forward to every single day. But that first couple of weeks out is a challenge. And you see most people struggle because they don't prepare for it properly. I prepared for 5 years for that moment. So I was ready. I knew no matter what I faced, I was never going back to my old ways. That part of my life was done forever. But now I had big, massive goals and I had a vision. Yeah. And so there was a lot of pressure on me, right? I was like, I gotta rise to this. I gotta rise up to this occasion, man. I can't just settle. And, a lot of people do. I came home and I could have worked a decent job and had a, mediocre life and just been sober and maybe had a family and just kind of coasted. But I wanted more, man. I wanted to push myself to see what I could really do in this life.
So talk to me. So you get out of prison, you're back home, you move, obviously you're back in your hometown. When was the first thought of, man, I want to help? I know you speak to a lot of inmates and help a lot of as they transition, just like you did. And then you wanted to be a coach. Like, tell me the moment you said, this is what I want to do. I want to help men with their mindset. I talk a lot about limiting beliefs like fear, insecurity, scarcity, comparison, shame, and success. Those are the six biggest limiting beliefs that I feel like people struggle with. When was that aha moment of, now I want to take what I've went through. I've been literally refined through the fire. Now I want to take this and I want to help teach this to other men.
Yeah, I was actually in prison. So about 3 years into my prison term, I had a lot of guys approaching me going, man, how are you so disciplined with your routines? Or how do you get in such good shape in here? Like, look at the food we're eating. What workouts are you doing? Or intrigued by college courses and what I was doing. So I started mentoring these guys, showing them how to establish routines, what workouts to do. We'd all go work out on the yard together. I got a lot of them to take college courses, and we would just talk differently about the life we wanted. It wasn't the same dialogue. It wasn't all the stories from the past and glorifying that stuff. It was, no, what do you want in the future? Who do you want to be? And it was different. And in that moment, I realized this is my purpose, man. I love working with people. I want to see everyone win. I want to help as many people as I can, because I know the pain, Ken. I know what it's like to go through years of pain and struggle, man. And I never thought I was going to be able to change my life or have this joy and love that I have in my life now. It's everything to me, man. It changed everything for me. And I want to see other people experience that, especially the individuals that feel hopeless or broken. So when I came home, I knew I wanted to coach and help people. I didn't know how, but I knew that's what was in my heart. So I started as a personal trainer. I started working with people in the gym and getting them, results with their health, losing weight, building muscle. But we would always have conversations. It was much more than just the workouts or nutrition. It was about the mindset, the habits, having the connection, that community that you talk about. And I saw a lot of people when I came home who were going through the motions like I did, who were holding back. I couldn't believe how many people I went to high school with, or, family and friends who had deteriorated while I was gone. They were worse off than when I left. And I was shocked. I was like, man, you get this one life. What are you doing out here?
Yeah.
And that prompted me to write the book, Prison of Your Own, talking about the mental prison, limiting beliefs, fear, self-doubt, all the stuff you described that hold us back. So I wrote my book. I was working as a trainer. I left a gym that I started out at and opened my own fitness company. And then COVID shut everything down. So COVID was another blessing for me. I'm not saying that what happened to people was, but all of a sudden the gyms were shut down. I lost all my clients. I lost all my income, and I wasn't even making a lot of money at that point. But I knew that I was more than a fitness coach. I didn't want to just be a guy that talked about macros and fitness. It's a component of us being at our best, but it's one component. And so at this time I had a newborn child, my daughter, Scarlett. I was married. My son, Mason, my stepson, was like 10 or 9 doing Zoom for school. And then my wife was pregnant again. And now COVID shut everything down. And I had no money coming in. I had like $1,200 at the bank, in the bank. I'm like, what am I going to do, man? This isn't the way it's supposed to be, but I had been through so much adversity. I just went through time in prison. I knew that if I didn't quit or give up on myself, I'd find a way to make it work. And that's when I just really started going on social media consistently every day, talking about my past, talking about the psychological barriers I broke through, talking about what it was like to be incarcerated and how I had to learn to think differently and how I had to shift my behaviors and all of these things that served me and helped me to change my life. And a lot of people were receptive to it and needed help because it was a stressful time. They were locked down. They were stressed. They were depressed. And that's when I created my life coaching business that now serves men all across the world. I have guys in different continents and different countries, and it's just taken off. So, man, for me, it's just been consistently being honest with myself, pursuing the vision, not seeing obstacles as detriments to who I want to be, but as leverage points. Like every obstacle I've come across, I've been able to use it to my advantage because I didn't back down. You push through it, you learn from it. And I continue to grow every step of the way. So I feel like I'm really just getting started, man. It's been a journey to this point, but I'm just building momentum, so I'm fired up for this next year, this next 5, this next 10, and what's going to come, come forward for me.
I love it, man. Sean, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you, find your book, get in contact with you if they want to reach out and connect and hear more about your story?
Yeah, on social media, it's Sean Michael Crane, SEAN, then Michael, and then Crane, CRANE. I have a website, SeanMichaelCrane.org. And then the book's on Amazon, Prison of Your Own. If you go check it out on Amazon, you can order it right to your doorstep. I have an audiobook as well.
I love that, dude. Dude, thanks for taking time out today. Guys, listen, Sean's going to be a speaker at Create Conference next January 26th through the 28th, the #1 entrepreneur conference in the Southeast. I've got friends, Eric Thomas coming in. John Maxwell is going to be back with us again this year. Ed Milet is going to be a first-timer at Create. My guy Sean's going to be there. Randy Garn, Amberly Lago, Jen Gottlieb, Anthony Trucks, Carlos Reyes. I mean, we've got a killer lineup for 2.5 days, dude. I'm stoked to be out there. I'm stoked for you to be out here with us for that. It's going to be amazing, dude. I love your story. Again, I think that I don't think we meet anybody that's on accident. And I feel like when God intersected our paths that day at Brad's office, I felt like it was for a reason. I love your story. I love your passion. I love your perseverance, dude. Your perseverance and consistency in what you do is it's encouraging. I know you don't know this, but dude, I watch you workout videos. I'm watching you do your deal, and I'm like, okay, get your ass up, old man, go to the gym. So I'm up and going to the gym. I'm down to 82, 83 pounds right now. So just busted it. One more time, Sean, Instagram, best way to follow you on IG is?
Yeah, Sean Michael Crane's my Instagram. You can go ahead and check it out right there.
Easy peasy, guys. Sean Michael Crane. Hey, man, thank you for joining us. Hey, guys, thanks for listening to another episode of As the Leader Grows podcast, where we are passionate about helping business leaders build confidence, gain clarity, and create community. If this has added value to you, do me a favor and just absolutely smash that like button, download. If you're listening to this podcast episode, if you'll screenshot it, tag Sean, tag myself, both of us will reshare this. Let us know that this is making a difference. And I'm literally just got a message from my podcast from Allison while we were sitting here recording this one from another guy, about 3 paragraphs about how it made an impact in his life. Just listen, we just dropped that podcast today. So guys, let us know. It makes a difference for our team. It makes a difference for guys like Sean, who are out here sharing his story, helping you understand that you have the ability within you to be able to overcome any circumstance or any situation. Guys, again, thanks for joining us on the As a Leader Grows podcast. We'll see you next time.